We are now recording, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so I will call us to order. Good afternoon, everyone. I just start, as you all know, with reading some information here that just makes this a legal meeting and explains the protocols that are in front of us. So, good afternoon. As chairman of the Albemarle County Board of Zoning Appeals, I call the meeting for January 5th, 2021 to order. This is an electronic meeting. Please be patient as we all become familiar with this meeting alternative and virtual process. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20-A (14), an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The BZA members who are electronically present at this meeting are, and we'll just, if everyone will announce themselves, I'll call you and just acknowledge your presence here. Randy Reinhardt.
Present.
Marcia.
Present.
Bo Carrington.
Present.
Ed Robb.
Present.
Me, John Shepherd, is here. And then also, all right, I want to also note that opportunities for the public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County website, on the Board of Zoning Appeals homepage, and on the Albemarle County calendar. Participation will include the opportunity to comment on those matters for which comments from the public will be received. I'm now to establish a quorum. I think I just did. Sorry for getting a little bit out of order there, but here we go. I also want to acknowledge Bart Svoda, zoning administrator, Marcia Alley, who's our clerk, Andy Herrick, attorney with the county representing the board. Representing the county. And I think that's all that's here. Oh, Francis McCall, deputy zoning administrator. So
John?
welcome everyone here. Yes, Marcia.
Jim Bowling is listed as an attendee.
Thank you, Mark.
Can we find him? Here we go.
He should be coming in.
Yep. Hello, Jim.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. We maybe jumped the gun, so we have done the introductions, including I introduced you at the last minute. So Mr. Bowling is here representing the Board of Zoning Appeals. So we have a quorum, and here we go. First thing on our agenda here is, well, this is an organizational meeting, and we're going to do elect officers, review and re-adopt our rules of procedure. We're going to look at our meeting schedule and also look at our annual report. We start with the nomination and election of officers. Before we do that, I want to just ask, it's sort of presented to us here that we would go through these in the individual offices, seek nominations and vote on people individually, or we could do it as a slate. Does anyone have an opinion or preference about that?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
hearing
Chairman.
none.
Yes?
I'll yield to Randy.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to place in nomination you, John Shepherd, as chair, Marcia as Joseph as vice chair, and Bo Carrington as our secretary for 2021.
I second.
Okay, is there any discussion about that? I will just say that I appreciate the opportunity to serve in this position another year. I look forward to it, and I thank you for the nomination. Other comments? So with that, Marcia, will you read the roll, please? Well, first, and just to be completely proper about this, do we want to just require the restating of the motion? I mean, I think we know what it is, but just to follow the total protocol.
Mr. Shepherd as chair, Ms. Joseph as vice chair, and Mr. Carrington as secretary. And I move the nominations be closed.
Thank you.
I
Mark?
second it.
So it's been moved by Mr. Reinhardt and seconded by Mr. Robb. Marcia, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt,
Aye.
Ms. Joseph,
Aye.
Mr. Robb,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We move on to reviewing and readopting the rules of procedure. Again, are there any comments anyone wishes to offer for this? I myself haven't found that there's anything I've wanted to change. I have no suggestions about changing the rules. They seem to have gotten us through a fairly complicated procedural year, and they helped get us through. I'm glad that they're in place. We did a lot of work with it a couple of years ago, and now I think, I'm fine with it.
Mr. Chairman, I move for the adoption of the current procedures for 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, so Mr. Reinhardt has moved and Mr. Robb has seconded the approval of our current rules of procedure to carry us through the next year, 2021. Further discussion? Yes.
Correction. That was Mr. Carrington that seconded.
No, sorry, thank you. So motion made by Mr. Reinhardt and seconded by Mr. Carrington. Good. Marcia, first, further discussion? I think we're good. Marcia, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt,
Aye.
Ms. Joseph,
Aye.
Mr. Robb,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye. Good. Next up is the meeting schedule. Any comments, questions about that? I have just a quick question. Marcia, is there an opportunity to change the time of day with these more generally? Is Tuesday wide open, or is that, did we just get lucky that day?
I believe we spoke about this in a previous meeting, and I did inquire with facilities. They could not guarantee us anything until we actually made that request. They wouldn't give me any confirmation on a hypothetical.
Okay, fair enough.
In case somebody else came in the meantime and took our spot.
Okay.
I have this vague feeling that in the rules and procedures that we just approved, that we talk about the time in there, but I'm not positive. But I would like, on the schedule itself, we've got a deadline for filing time, 3 o'clock, but we don't have the time on the schedule. And it just makes it easier for everybody who's applying to know that the time that the board is meeting is 2 o'clock. So if that could be put on the schedule.
I'm taking a look at that right now.
Okay,
Yes, I can add that.
okay, thanks.
In that column, just like the deadline, would that be suitable, or would you rather it be somewhere else?
No, it's fine, just as long as when the public comes in that you give them one of these or they go online, that they know that the meeting itself is at 2:00.
I'll do that. I can certainly make that change.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Does anyone want to pursue the idea of changing the meeting time? I'm not proposing it. This is a chance for somebody it's a chance to talk about it. 2:00 works for me. I'm sort of in the rhythm of it myself.
Randy, at one time you talked about you had preferred an earlier morning kind of meeting. I don't know if you still are thinking that way, or because we did move, one meeting we moved up earlier.
We had a special meeting early.
Yeah.
I don't know that I was, actually, I don't remember it, but thanks for being my memory. Sorry.
Okay.
As long as you don't make it 2:00 in the morning, I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, well, it sounds like
I
we're,
mean, what is the advantage? I think we should have an open mind about it, but I don't know that there is an advantage. I'm thinking more of the staff, and it gives them that extra time in the morning to prepare for afternoon, should that need arise. So,
Well, I'm thinking of the public also, and since
Right.
this has been at 2:00 forever, I think people have it in their heads that this is when this meeting occurs. So that's another portion of this, I guess.
okay, so I was looking for sort of if anyone had the idea with a strong idea about changing the time. I wanted to hear that now, but I don't think that's what we're saying. I think we're comfortable with the time where it is now, right? Seems like in terms on discussion level, I think that's where we are. So with that, and with the addition of putting the meeting time on the schedule, I invite a motion to approve it.
I move we approve the meeting schedule with the addition of the time that the meeting is held.
second,
Okay, so Marcia has moved and Randy has seconded the approval of our schedule as is presented. Marcia, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt,
aye.
Ms. Joseph,
Aye.
Mr. Robb,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye. And now finally up is the annual report for 2020. I have one question. It was revised a little bit. It was revised to add a little information about the two appeals, the court appeals. Andy, I want to make sure that the little synopsis description of the issue was stated well enough. Happy with the way that was.
Yeah, the wording of that is up to the BZA, and I'm fine with it.
Okay. So with that, I don't know if you've, I myself have reviewed the annual report pretty carefully. I have no further comments about it. Any other discussion for the annual report? Any questions, comments? One thing I had spoken to Bart about, I think at this point, Bart, I believe that this is forwarded to the Board of Supervisors.
Yes, sir. We weren't going to take it to the board without, of course, the BZA's approval. So that's the next step, and it will be going, I believe it's in February.
And then where does this sit on the, is this also going to be on the county website, or is that something we can talk about? Or, I mean, am asking the question, but what I'm suggesting is that I think that the end report is something I would like to be come up fairly easily in a Google search. If
Yeah,
someone's wondering what the what getting a picture of what the BZA does.
yes, sir. Historically, it lives under the agenda and the materials of that meeting, of the first meeting of the BZA annually. If we want to create a separate tab, let's say on the web page that says annual reports, that's probably a possibility. Kind of as we discuss, it's probably best if you and I get together to walk through the web page and see where it would fit best.
Okay. So for that, I think for now, let's just decide whether or not we want to approve it as it's written. And we can save that discussion for a future meeting when we understand what our options are with that and how best to approach that. It is my hope and that it be easily accessible, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, well, I guess for direction, if there's no objection to posting it separately on the web page, if we can meet our guidelines for from IT on how we post it on the web page, that we just go ahead and do that as opposed to report back and wait. Let me put it that way.
Okay, well,
Up to you. It's at the board's pleasure. Just a suggestion.
other people have an idea about that? I think it should, I personally think that the annual report should be easily found by people searching.
Yeah, as the new guy on the team, I think that it's a great synopsis document of what the board's done over the past year. So I agree, John. I think that it should be easily accessible.
All right, thanks. So I guess can we make that a two-part motion, or just include that in our motion with the approval? Someone like to capture that in a motion?
So move. I don't understand why it would be in two motions, but
No, I don't think it has to be in two
Okay.
motions.
so
I'm looking for a motion that we approve the annual report as presented, and that we further ask that it be posted on the county's website.
so move.
Second,
Thank you, Mr. Rob. Ms. Marcia, can you call the roll?
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt,
Aye.
Ms. Joseph,
Aye.
Mr. Rob,
aye.
Mr. Shepherd.
Aye.
I want to say something about the annual report.
Okay.
It's not anything about content, but I think it's really an important thing, and I just want this to go on the record, to have the board recognize how helpful it is to the BZA to have Mr. Bowling with us so that we can consult with him on different issues. So I just want to also be able to thank them at some point in time for taking the leap and making the expenditure. And thank you, Jim.
Thank you for saying that, Marcia. I wish I'd thought of it myself, because I definitely agree with that. Jim, you have really helped us. I think our decisions are better. It's just been very helpful, and I appreciate the work you're doing with us. We were lucky to find you. You're on mute.
I said you're a nice board.
Thank you. This is good. Okay. So that was our organizational meeting. I guess we're organized. Moving to public hearing, I just want to, for the record, there is no public hearing today. We're on our own. Next up is the approval of the minutes from our last meeting. I ask if people have had an opportunity to review them, and if there are any comments, just sort of go around the room here. Mr. Carrington, comments on the minutes?
No, it was a lot of content to capture and I thought it was well done. So I don't have any comments.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rob?
No comments here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Reinhardt?
No comments.
Ms. Joseph?
Well, I have been negligent. I'm going to have to abstain from this vote because I just didn't have the time to read through that. So I apologize, but I just didn't do it.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Mr.
I have no
Chairman,
comments either, and yes?
I,
Yes,
under
Mr.
old,
Rob?
under old business, or new, I want to make a comment that would relate to somewhat to that report, the minutes of the last meeting. Would you prefer that I do that now? We've already basically accepted the minutes, isn't that correct?
Well, we're in the middle of approving the minutes. Are we talking about is this having to do with the minutes, or do you want to go back and talk about the annual report?
Well, no, I want to talk about the minutes of the last meeting, just briefly.
Okay,
But I want
yes,
to,
so,
I think it'd be better done under the old business. I can do it that.
well, are we prepared to approve the minutes as written for the last meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so,
I'm not sure that that's the case. Mr. Robert, you want to comment on the minutes? Let's comment them before we approve them.
Well, okay. No, I want a follow-up question that would not be included in the minutes. Is this too confusing?
a little bit, but if we can separate it out, if you're prepared to vote.
I'll
vote on the
withdraw.
minutes
I'm
now,
prepared to vote. Yes.
Okay, then we will come back to this point. So is there a motion to accept, to approve the minutes from our December 1st, 2020 meeting?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of our last meeting, the 2020 meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so the approval of the minutes motion to approve the minutes has been made by Mr. Rob, seconded by Mr. Reinhardt. Minutes for the December 1st, 2020 meeting. Marcia, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Carrington,
Aye.
Mr. Reinhardt,
Aye.
Ms. Joseph,
I abstain.
Mr. Rob,
Aye.
Mr. Shepherd,
Aye. Okay, the minutes are adopted. So now we're moving to old business, and let's just start. Mr. Rob, what was your concern about?
I'm concerned, being a law enforcement guy, I'm concerned about the follow-up enforcement of agreements and the discussions that were made regarding, for instance, the North Point situation there. There were certain promises made during that meeting. And I wonder if the county has seen fit to follow up to see if those agreements, those promises have been acted on. And because, you know, we get these promises all the time, and very frequently they fall through the cracks. I'm concerned about that. And I just wondered where we go from here. Maybe Bart can answer that.
I could answer one quick question to that. The construction entrance is closed. It's blocked with Jersey barriers, and there's a bank has been graded in front of it to block the entrance.
Well, then I commend you, Mr. Chairman, for your actions. I'm wondering why does the county have a system to follow up on these agreements and positions? And I'm concerned. I just wonder, we come up with these demands, if you will, requirements, or what do you want to call them? Bart, is there a follow-up within a certain length of time, like 30 days or a month or 2
Yeah,
weeks?
so we were also aware that then we've been monitoring the site for North Point, that the construction access has been moved from Pritchett Lane to 29, and the bridge has finally been completed. I believe it actually took a little bit longer than the applicant had stated, because about a week after that, we got about a week's worth of rain, if you recall. But that has been done. For conditions such as the variance that was approved, those inspections are done. They're part of the permit process. They're done both at the preliminary stage and then at the final stage for those that are applicable there, like the way the building looks or whether there's screening required. That's part of their final zoning, those variance conditions. So yes, there is a mechanism and a method to follow up on those things.
Well, would it be in order somehow that if we made that a requirement of our next meeting, a meeting following when these agreements were reached, just as a matter of policy, a matter of practice, that you would give us that report?
So I would say that we could. The struggle will be that the permit that's pulled for the barn, there's no time limit as long as construction is continued. So for the variance, as an example, they may be done next month, or maybe they may be done 3 years from now. So in order to report back, that's a lot of staff time to monitor that one particular permit for that. Now, we could do, when we go through their report annually, tell you whether or not that permit's been completed. That may be a better way to manage resources a little more efficiently. If that makes sense.
Well, thank you for your response.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me that there pretty much for every application, there's a final, there's an endpoint that requires some kind of a final approval. Generally, I mean, there's from various processes where you're releasing a bond, or you get a certificate of occupancy or a clearance or things like that. So there's, seems like the mechanisms are in place, but it might be helpful to us to sort of see the fruits of our labors, to see how things play out. So I think in that way, it would be a good idea to to follow up on things, maybe at the point of the annual report next year, to see where things are or something. But
Okay.
something that we can discuss that further.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm not sure that, I think if in the course of reporting, we're asking staff to do that, but even if they hadn't accomplished that requirement, we can't go back on it. It'll just be information only. We don't have that authority. If they didn't comply, that's the job of staff. So I want to make sure that we don't unnecessarily take up staff's time to have a report to us on those things. But in the course of reporting, that's fine. But I don't want, we shouldn't as a body have to have them report to us in certain periods of time. If it didn't make the 30 days, they've got to let us know that it didn't happen. They pushed it out, so forth. That's not our job.
Mhm. I agree. I think the things that would, that I had in mind, I haven't really given this any thought until now, but just as we're discussing it, has to do with, I think, all of these things that we are acting on are associated with applications that have end dates and have all sorts of conditions built into them. And like North Point has, we saw the proffers and conditions on North Point. It's a tremendous thing, and it's a large program to monitor the site work and the construction there, and stormwater management and all of that, and which is beyond our scope. And that's, in other words, there are approvals along the way and final approvals, but in terms of, which might be interesting to us, but as far as the monitoring the progress, I don't think that's appropriate for us. Just, is there, working on building a building, which can take any, it's in their ballpark. I mean, it's in the hands of the owner to determine the timing.
So did we make a decision, or I'm looking at it from the staff's point of view, or even in the case of Andy reporting to us on certain appeals and what have you. I don't want to see us having asking staff to make it a requirement. If we've made a decision, we move on. If they want to let us know certain things, that's one thing, but I don't want, just me, I don't want to put in an unnecessary requirement. They got enough to do as it is, but that's one man's opinion. That's
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't want it to be misunderstood. I'm not saying that it has to be a requirement. What I am saying is there a mechanism in place by the county to follow up on these particular promises that are made? Because I know from past experiences over the years that there are promises made by certain people, and those promises are never carried, it never gets carried out. And I know this because I've seen it now. And I've oftentimes wondered, well, why isn't it, what's going on here? If you make promises, you've got to keep them. And I'm not suggesting that we have to have a weekly or monthly report. I'm asking if there is a mechanism. And if so, at our level, we ought to be able to ask and say, well, what has happened here? And not with the intention of doing anything that would be, it would reflect unfavorably on anybody other than just, well, what happened? Now, if we're going to act in the capacity of being judges, if you will, of course, the judges don't have the requirement to make sure that the agreements are followed up with, because there is staff that does that. My question is, I think, pretty simple. Do you have a mechanism, Bart?
Yes. So the answer is yes. And the promises, we'll use your terms, Mr. Rob, that staff has jurisdiction over are the ones that are conditions placed on applications and ordinance requirements, state code requirements, those sorts of things. Statements that an applicant makes generally are not within our jurisdiction, meaning we don't have the authority to hold somebody to a promise that they made verbally. If let's use screening as an example. If an applicant says, sure, I don't mind planting 10 trees, but the condition says 6 trees, then staff's authority lies with 6 trees, not with 10 trees. So that's why we're very careful when we have the discussions and write the conditions in the reports that we're specific about what happens and what we're allowed, then that we're clear in the conditions of what's going to be required, because those are the things, the requirements are the conditions, the requirements are the ordinance. Beyond that, there is no jurisdiction from the county that stretches farther than that. Does that help? But we look at those through the permit process. So anything that comes in with a site plan, whether it's a proffer, whether it's a special use permit condition, a variance condition, those are reviewed at the time of application or at the timing of the proffer. So a proffer may say that you may have to have, which this isn't a BZA item, but it may say that road X needs to be built by 2021, December 2021. Staff has that condition monitored and to make sure that that condition is met as we review permits as that project goes on. So there's different triggers for different things. If we use North Point as an example, the North Fork Research Park, those proffers are 20 years old. There are still triggers in there that have not been met because they're based on square footage as opposed to a specific date. North Point has some similar ones. There's timing issues in there that staff monitors as the project progresses. Some are related to permits, some are related to dates, and we do have a mechanism for that. The variance, which is in the BZA's purview, those conditions will be checked when the application is made to make sure first that when the permit is issued that it matches those requirements. And then again, at final, that what was proposed is actually what was built. So that's the long answer. The short answer is yes, there's mechanisms in place to make sure that those conditions are met. Hope that helps.
Does that resonate for you, Mr. Rob?
Yes.
Also, I hesitate to add to this, but I would also add that I think it's my understanding that the whole zoning enforcement program is predicated on, among other things, it's a complaint-driven system as well when you're dealing with violations, so that there are some of the closest observers of projects are neighbors, as we just saw with the North Point thing. And I think that's a typical thing, that neighbors are very interested in the conditions that are put on projects. And if neighbors see conditions not being met, they can report to the zoning department, and that would be in a very focused way dealing with a particular issue that the zoning inspectors would go after that. I often mention that to people. I've mentioned that in public hearings in the past when people are, concerned about a controversial, what is for them a controversial project in their backyard, that the zoning department stands ready to investigate complaints. Is that stated right, Bart? Can you accept that?
Well, I'm not intended on belaboring the issue. We could talk about this for the rest of the day. I've made my point. Yes. And my point goes back a long time. I've seen, and so have you, Bart, yep, where promises are made and promises are never kept. And I'm just asking if there was, now I realize you have a limit to your jurisdiction and your capabilities to enforce. But that doesn't mean it's okay for people to make promises and not keep them. And maybe Mr. Bowling has an opinion on this. I don't know. I'm not looking for trouble. I'm looking to support the people that are out there at North Point and weren't getting responses to their complaints. The trucks were rolling up and down that road, all the problems that were there. And we heard representatives from the contractor saying that that they would meet with the residents and that they were, more than happy to do all that they could to make the neighbors comfortable and happy and understanding. But that didn't happen, and maybe it has happened since. But we have to look after the citizens of this county, and everybody does that. But sometimes the citizens fall by the wayside.
Okay. Good to keep in mind. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Mr. Rob. Additional old business on anyone's mind? Any new business on anyone's mind?
Mr. Chairman, and
Yes.
fellow members, board members, May of 21, i.e. this year, my term expires or ends, and I want to announce that I do not want to run for reappointment to the Board of Zoning Appeals. I've been on the board. I don't even know the records go back that far, but something plus or minus 25 years. And it's time for me to get the gold watch and head to the pasture. Our travel schedule is, if the creeks don't rise, we're headed to Alaska this summer, and I'll miss 4 meetings. And but there are other reasons. But at any rate, I want to stay as long as it takes to up till the June meeting for the applicants, judge of making an appointment and so forth. I'll relinquish my spot earlier if that is the case, but I can stay through June if necessary. I'm not going out of town. I mean, I'm not leaving town, so to speak, but it's just time. I've done this for enough years. And so it's meant a lot to me, but I just made that decision. It was a good point to hang it up.
That's a huge disappointment. But I hope I wish you have a wonderful time in Alaska, and we're going to use you as much as we possibly can until June comes round. And now it's up to you to recruit somebody. That's your job.
Oh great.
Well, I would say, I would sum up my reaction to that, Randy, is to say thank you. I don't want to make this a swan song that where every month we make this a retirement party that goes on and on. But I just have a lot of respect for you and have appreciated, you have helped me in a lot of ways, and just sort of personally with guidance, and also just in general, just tremendous just experience over the years. So you're really embody so much of the institution and reflect that in just your decisions, reactions to things. It's really helpful and powerful. So definitely respect your decision. Thank you for all that's happened up to now, and look forward to still going to wring a few months out of you. So it's not over yet. It does occur to me that I guess we can, there's a mechanism where this might be a smooth transition without a large gap. If the judge can be notified of the coming opening and start that process. Some ways by announcing this early, Randy, it's a tremendous help to the board to avoid the 3, 4, 5 month vacancies that we've had in the past, causing all sorts of problems with quorums and split decisions and all of that. This, by announcing it early, gives us a chance for a good transition, bringing the next person on.
It's a total respect of something that I have believed in over the years. And we're delighted that Bo is here, but that the angst that did cause before he came on is something I don't want to see this board go through. So anyway,
Okay,
thank
well,
you.
Thank you. Wow. We'll just, that'll take a while to absorb that. It's a piece of news for sure. All right. Can anyone top that for new business?
I can't top it, but I would like to ask the attorneys while they're here, because I was so incredibly negligent in not reading the minutes because they were 49 pages long. I was wondering, is there any way that those minutes can be reduced? I mean, do they have to contain everything verbatim? Is what's the legal requirement for minutes? I know we have an audio wherever you store them, digitally in electrons someplace. But is there, I mean, because we have the audio, do we have to have minutes that are so verbatim? That's my question.
Well, the simple answer to that is no, but it's more complicated than that, as Andy knows. And over the years, I think that's been a debate with the Board of Supervisors, which since the clerk ultimately serves the Board of Zoning Appeals, but the clerk is employed by the Board of Supervisors in the county, that tends to dictate how minutes are created. Now, Andy's much more familiar with this process than I am, so I'll let him speak.
So the minutes that are currently kept for the BZA far exceed the legal standards in terms of the requirements. All that the Freedom of Information Act requires is simply a record of the motions made and the actions taken. So what's currently being created near verbatim minutes, again, far exceeds the legal standards. I personally wouldn't be opposed to a reduction or making the minutes more concise or brief. There's nothing requiring that they be as long as they are now, but that's ultimately a decision for the BZA to make rather than for staff or the attorneys to make.
Mr. Chairman, in the past, I mean, we went for a number of months before with short minutes, unless we had a case, a legal case, and we needed it, or we requested it after a meeting that was, I'll use the word contentious or whatever. But for a long time, we never had word for word or what. So I don't know why we can't go back to that or whatever.
Mr. Chairman.
Mhm.
The evidence in the event that anything would come to the courts, the evidence would be the recording that is being made. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So therefore, the minutes themselves or the transcripts aren't accurate anyway. They've been created as and we've had discussions related to this during the course of the last few years. Because the transcripts they identify generally what was being said, not necessarily exactly what was said. So I don't see any reason why we need to have minutes that are as prepared by a stenographer and put into our plans, I mean, into our meeting meeting requirements. I would agree with Randy. We have had them a lot shorter, and it could easily be a synopsis that would be created by somebody. It would be fine with me.
I wonder if it doesn't require actually more skill to write shorter minutes than basically capturing the entire discussion. Because when you start editing the discussion, you're bringing I've done minutes myself and know that there's a lot of there's a lot of discretion in minutes, or there can be, if you're dealing with, more sort of summaries of discussions. I think the bottom line for me would be, I would want the minutes to reflect the basis of our decision. They're, particularly like with variances where you're dealing with, 2 threshold issues and 5 more criteria. That's something where, just assume it's going to be appealed, and where you'd want the board's, to spell out the basis of the decision. The same with an appeal, they boil down to a few points, and you'd want to have clarity on catching the basis of a decision on an appeal as well. But there's a lot of, I cringe when I read my own, I'm going to cringe reading this right now. See, I just repeated myself. When you read yourself being captured verbatim, it's a humbling experience, and it seems like a lot of that could be gone. How would we approach that? What would be involved in that? Like a training with, I think it's Beth Goldman, is that her name, who does the minutes now?
Yes,
something
Well,
she'd be able to do?
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding that Ms. Golden is our professional transcriptionist at this point. If this is a subject that the board would like staff to explore further, might I suggest that we come back at a future meeting with maybe some alternatives? I can think of some other departments or some other boards and committees that work with the Department of Community Development. The Architectural Review Board and the Conservation Easement Authority come to mind, that do their minutes differently, but that still meet the requirements of the Freedom of Information Act. And what I'd suggest is, if this is a topic that the board wants to go into in more depth, that staff come back at a future meeting with examples of how other boards and commissions handle it, and that we explore it further at a meeting like that.
Thank you. I think that's a great idea.
That sounds perfect. And I just wanted to add something, John, that you were saying, is that the reason that we as a board read the minutes is to make sure that we feel that they're accurate. So there always is that second level. So you've got someone listening, someone writing down what they think that we said, and then we have the end responsibility of saying, yes, that's how it went down. So we will always have that input. Because yeah, I've done minutes too, and normally when people are just yammering on like I am now, I will say something like, well, there was extensive discussion concerning this issue, and they came to this conclusion. So I mean, I know what you're talking about, but also we as a board have a responsibility to make sure that what's represented is correct. So
I think seeing these, hearing from like examples of other boards who have found a different way would be really helpful. It'd be very interesting to me, and I look forward to that.
Let me pop in for a second to the attorneys, both of them. If Marcia just triggered this, if we should make a casual statement within the discussion of a case that was a casual off the cuff, and it is written down, is that one of the examples of why the the audio tape is played in court? I mean, because we could slip up saying something and jeopardize a whole appeal court case by something we didn't intend to. So I've never thought about this until Marcia kind of implied that. Can you all just give me some help there?
That you go and have a transcript made is because, and this is not to in any way slight the fantastic job that the transcribers do for the county, but they're not court reporters who certify what they're saying, and you want to be exactly sure what was said. So in every case that of any importance, what I do as a matter of practice is get the transcript. Now, having said that, it used to be a real problem to not only board members, but also the public to actually listen to the transcripts. But given the miracles of modern communication, or the curse, if you want to call it that, it's now relatively easy to stay in the comfort of your home and listen to a transcript of the audio of a public meeting.
Mr. Reinhardt, if I might address your question, your concern about maybe an individual member saying something that would jeopardize the board as a whole. The argument that we frequently make, and that's true in court, is that the board speaks through its resolutions and adopted orders. So regardless of any comments that any individual board member might make, again, the board as a whole, the official action is reflected in the adopted resolutions and orders. And that's all that the court really should be considering.
Good discussion. Look forward to hearing more on this. I think we're gonna do some good work on this. I can tell this is going to be good. Thank you, Marcia, for setting that off and the other comments. More new business? Anything just for the good of the cause?
For the good of the cause, we have no February meeting, no March meeting. So,
Oh,
yep.
wow.
Good work. Good cause.
Right. All righty.
More training.
Well, that gives Marcia and me more time to plan the party for Randy.
It doesn't have to just be the women.
That's true. You can join us too, John.
Can we have a party? We'll have to do it on Zoom. Join me in a cup of coffee, my good friends. It would be great. This year we're going to be able to meet again. I guess I hope in the fall, sometime late summer, or fall, we're back in the auditorium. We'll see. Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
And there's a second.
Seconded.
And all those in favor signify yes by raising your hand. That's a unanimous vote. So thank you very much. 2 minutes. We did that in 57 minutes with less than an hour. Thought this might expand into a much longer session. You know, work fills time allotted, and if there's no end point, it can go on and on. So good meeting. I think we're off to a good start. Good luck to all of us this the coming year as we're working together. Appreciated it so far and look forward to more. And Happy New Year. Best wishes. And so right now it's like we're months away from another meeting, it sounds like.
Yes, sir.
Keep up the good work.
So no chance of a March. I mean, they missed a deadline if need be.
Yeah, deadline was today.
Okay.
So maybe
Yes.
we'll have a working meeting at some point to talk about the minutes or anything else like that that comes up. We might want to still we might have something on the agenda even if it's not no public hearings or anything else. So,
Right. Yeah. So, well, technically we have 2 minutes left before the 3 o'clock deadline. So unless something comes in, doesn't at this point, it does not look like there will be a March meeting, but February is definitely no items.
okay, good. Okay. So best wishes and carry on, everyone. Thank you so much. Good day.
Wear those masks.
Yeah.
Hoo-ha.